Hey everybody. So this is the 12th episode of Agents of Shield, and let me adjust that right there. So this is the 12th episode of Agents of Shield that happened recently, and today is my reaction to that. This thing is being weird on me. Um, I apologize if I'm looking this way instead. I don't know what's up with the camera here, but So for episode 12 of Agents of Shield, in this episode we get to learn more about. That is really weird. I'm sorry. That's really weird. Okay, a little better. Okay, episode 12. Okay, Agents of Shield, episode 12. We learn more about Agent Sky in this episode. We More of her past is revealed. Coulson and Agent May. They learn more about basically how she got adopted and how they went through this huge process back in the day to make sure she was safe and things of that nature, and why it's almost dangerous for Sky to be on the team at this point. And it goes into detail of why that is a dangerous thing and things of that nature. And while all that is going on, Fitz and Simmons and I believe Coulson as well, for some of it at least, um, something goes on at a academy nearby or a university of some kind, and there is some type of an ice virus growing in this pool, and this kid who's being involved with this ice experiment that this one student on campus wants him to get involved with, since he has some ice experience with this thing that happened to him, this ice virus in this pool on campus. He's asked by this guy who is basically making this thing that's going to control the storms or something along that line. And so the other agents, who, while they're worrying about Sky's past and things of that nature, they have to deal with this ice virus that this guy has seemed to have in his body somewhere, and they don't quite know why he's so significant to this guy who wants to control the storms with this device. So that basically this episode had two plots going on throughout it. And the unfortunate side is we have to wait 3 weeks once again to find out what happens next after this episode. So for tonight's episode, you guys, I thought it was okay. I wasn't super impressed with tonight's episode. I thought episode 11, the previous episode before this one, um, was easily the best that we've had in the series so far, and this was like a huge step down compared to that. It just we've had so many better episodes already. Just like, okay, well, this one wasn't bad. It didn't seem as fun as some other episodes we've had, a couple weeks back. For the positives and negatives, as far as my reaction to this episode goes, I liked some of the X-Men references. I definitely caught like a lot of Iceman references, specifically because of this ice virus in this episode. So a lot of X-Men references, which really makes me bring to the point again. Is there going to be some type of X-Men crossover or X-Men? Really significant X-Men reference to a future X-Men or a past X-Men movie, just because they've brought up X-Men a lot. They don't specifically bring it up, but we have things like Iceman and things like reminding us of things that happened in the Wolverine movie recently and things of that nature. More Sky's past was revealed, so we get to learn more about Sky, which is always a good thing. But it's just like, we just did that in the previous episode. That just happened more so in that one. So it's just like we get to this one, it's just like, okay, well, that's nice, but that previous episode kind of did it a little bit better. Fitz and Simmons were actually more useful in this episode, and I really like that. Normally they're just kind of pushed to the side, or they're more so side characters. I kind of liked how Agent Fitz and Agent Simmons actually got something neat to do in this episode, so that's a kind of a first for once for them. I liked how Agent Coulson was back in action. Last episode he was just kind of on a table the whole time and really didn't get a lot to do. That was kind of the first episode where Coulson himself didn't really get a lot to do in an episode, and this episode definitely made up in the sense that he got a lot more to do. We actually got to see him in action this time, and um, even though that previous episode was better itself, the overall episode, it was just nice to see Agent Coulson back in action again. Special effects weren't too bad in this episode. I think we've had better episodes with some better special effects, to be honest, though. So not awful special effects, but it's a compliment. They weren't bad special effects this time around. Huge negative of this episode. We gotta wait several weeks for the next episode. It sounds like we have to wait till like February 4th for the next episode. So another 3 week wait for another episode of this series. So overall, just not as good as episode 11. Episode 11 was a lot of fun, and this is a huge step down compared to that episode. I thought. I thought this episode tried to fit in too much content at once. It just like, okay, they're throwing this in, they're throwing this in, they're throwing this in, they're throwing this in. It's just like too many things they threw into this episode. You could just kind of tell that they wanted to cover a lot because they probably were aware at the time that this was going to be a 3 week gap until the next episode. So I don't know if that was the reasoning behind it or what that was, but I thought a little bit too much content in this episode. I would have liked to have seen a much tamer load of content in this episode, I thought. So it just didn't feel Marvel comic-ish enough. It just didn't. There was a lot of moments in this episode tonight where it just did not feel like something you'd see from like a Marvel story. So not in a good way either. Because I want. That's what I really liked about the previous episode. It felt like something that Marvel Comics would tell us and give us, and it would show us kind of the high quality product they can give us. This episode I really didn't feel gave Marvel Comics any justice at all, so huge negative there. And really, if you think about it, really besides that, the few X-Men references they had in this episode, really not a lot. Not a lot of like Marvel comic related stuff going on in this episode. I did hear somewhere that Stan Lee is going to make a cameo in a future episode. I heard Bill Paxton might play a minor role at some point, and I guess there's going to be an episode around the time the new Captain America comes out where they're going to connect things with the show and what happened recently in Captain America 2 and things of that nature. So um, just I thought the opening of this episode was kind of weak too, with the whole swimming pool and the kids finding out that the ice virus is in there and stuff, and kind of a weak opening once again. Just it's just a huge like imagine the last episode, episode 11 from last week, and then they just took it a huge step down to what they gave us, and it just I thought it was a very weak opening compared to last week, and just the overall episode felt very weak in comparison. So I kind of left this episode being like that could have been so much better, and it just didn't do it as much as I was hoping it was going to do. So tonight's episode was okay, not a great episode, not something I'm gonna remember for several years from now. Um, but not bad enough to say it's the worst episode. I definitely think we've had some much worse episodes, more so toward the beginning of the series. So hopefully, when February 4th or whatever the next episode is going to happen, hopefully that'll be a better episode. So I will see you here for that episode reaction when that episode gets shown on the air.